One of the important things that we will need throughout the semester is working with options and document properties and changing some stuff sometimes. Okay, so I thought I would allocate a lecture, although short, to this topic, and I covered the important things, although we are not going to cover all of the items here, but some of the important things I will show you under tools options that would be relevant, and we would face them probably several times. So like changing units, changing some colors, putting some options on or off, or something, turning them on or off. So here, one of them is the color, right? So default colors. For example, we'll learn that in SolidWorks, when you select something, and probably you saw it in the previous lecture, when you select an item and highlight it, it goes a light blue. Then basically the sketch entities, lines, curves, and so on, if they are underdefined, means you have not provided all dimensions and relations to fully provide their location and size and everything. They are dark blue. If you provide all the necessary information and make them fully defined, they go black. And if you add more dimensions, they go red or yellow. Okay, so each color in SolidWorks means something, right? Okay, or the background color, you can change the background color as well, okay? I showed you here that you can change the background scene and make it plain white, but maybe some people would prefer some other color in the background, yellow, black, whatever color, okay? So where is it that on options, tools options, I can change those, okay? So they are under system options and under color. So let me show you. So this is that same object I opened last time, and now I go under tools and I go under options. And there are two main tabs: system options, which are general, and then document properties, which are only for this document, okay? If you have another file open or another thing, you have to change each one of them separately. System options is basically for all of the files open. So under system options, if you go to colors here, under color scheme settings, that's where you can change the background, okay? So here, if you just go down and look, right? So here, drawings background, right? That's probably what you have, the normal color, right? And if you click on edit, let's say I want to change the background color to black. Okay, but that's for drawing, not for the 3D. If you go here and create drawings, then it should ideally create background black. Let's see. Let me just choose a paper and go. Let's see. And for the moment being, let's just, yeah, actually it's not even this one, because you see in background of drawings or drafting is kind of yellowish, so it's not exactly that. We had to change it to another one, so let me find that for you. There are several names that are quite similar, so you have to drawing paper color, yeah, paper color, not background. So that's that color, and I want it white. I don't like that kind of yellowish color, right? So I change it, and there we go, right? So I can make my background of drafting when I add those standard views that we'll do later in this course. I can change that color to white, or here, for example, let me show you. As I said, if sketch entities are fully defined, then the color is black. So here, all these lines are fully defined and constrained, so they are black, but you can change that color too, right? You just need to go here, then again go there, and then find basically here, sketch fully defined. You see it's black, but maybe I said no, well, I prefer some color that is different from everything else, maybe cyan or this kind of green, right? So if I choose that, you see, now these quantities that were black, now they turn green. So you can change all of the colors that you want. I do not recommend messing up with them unless you really have to or want to. But I personally prefer to deal with the standard that I have always worked with and not change those, especially some colors for sketches like this. So you can change so many different things about colors over there. The other thing that is very important when we basically create sketches, 2D profiles in the next lecture, is relations and snaps, okay? So basically, what is it that you can add? What is it that you can draw? Automatic relations and so on and so forth, okay? Let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, so for example, let me start something from scratch here. I go and create a part and say I go to front plane and I want to draw some sketch. So here, if I draw a line, as soon as I make the line vertical, as you can see here, right? As you can see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but the yellow line with the yellow window with the black line, that sign means the line is now vertical. Then if I move and make my line to go horizontal, you see there is horizontal, right? Now I go like this, go like that. Look, if I make this line perpendicular to the previous line, you see the symbol of perpendicular, right? The two lines perpendicular, right? Now, if I make this line parallel to one of these lines here, right, or perpendicular to the previous one, now these lines are what? Parallel. That one and that one are parallel, right? And then if it passes through a point, then I have the coincidence. So that intersection that you see with the circle, that is coincident, and so on and so forth. So these guys here, these are automatic relations without you bothering to force the line to be horizontal or vertical. SolidWorks has a default that will add them for you. You can turn that off, and then SolidWorks will not make this line horizontal for you, even though you drew it horizontally. So it gives you something like this. If you just click here one time on the symbol and use delete from your keyboard, so when you draw a horizontal line, although it's horizontal, but SolidWorks will not force it to be horizontal. And then what can happen? Well, nothing special, but since this line is not horizontal, if you grab one corner and drag, you can give it an angle, right? But look at this. This is vertical, right? It's forced to be vertical. If I grab a corner, I can never give it angle. It always stays vertical. You can resize it, but you cannot change the orientation of it. Or if you move any point of this, this will always stays perpendicular to the other one, regardless of where you move it or how big or small you make it. Okay, so these other constraints stay on. Now, can I force this to be horizontal? Yes, I'll show you. All you need is just click on it one time. When this window appears, then you choose horizontal option. Okay, and now you're forced, but you did it. SolidWorks didn't automatically. Why? It can do or it cannot do it depends on whether I turn on the option says automatic relations on or off, right? So as I said, if you go under system options, sketch relations, you see here this check mark that says automatic relations. If you turn it off, you're not going to get any of these. You have to do everything by yourself, which sometimes some people prefer, Because when the sketch gets too complicated, then SolidWorks try to impose on you a new relation. When you draw any line or any curve, it tries to relate it to something previously made, although that's probably not your preference. So sometimes turning it off makes life easier instead of turning it on or leaving it on. But it depends on how complicated your sketch is, okay? Typically for simple sketches, it's better be on. And again, as I said, under sketch relations, that's here, this guy, okay? Whether you want to turn it on or off, okay? So that's another thing. The other thing that you just saw was grid. So here under sketch, here, you see, let me turn the grid on too, although that wasn't exactly grid here. If you want to show the grid, you have to come here, okay, and click on that grid. That's a snap to grid, means you can click on the grid points. But here I also turn on for you on and off the grid if you want. Okay, so there are so many things here. Snap to means you can select them, you can click on them, right? The other important thing that you have under sketch itself is whether or not it shows, for example, the center points of arcs. This one is extremely important, whether or not scale the sketch on the first dimension creation, whether or not prompt you to set a driven state. These 3 or 4, or use fully defined sketches. These 3 or 4 are extremely important, so let me explain them to you. So if by default use fully defined sketches is not on, what does that mean? If that is on, okay, if that is on, then I can only use fully defined sketches to create 3D objects. And again, creating sketches and objects is the topic of our future lectures, but I just want you to know about it. So if I make a circle, right? And I set it at origin, so the location is fixed, and I just draw it, but I don't provide the radius or diameter, right? So this is not fully defined. You can resize it. And you see the color is blue, not black, right? Now, if I exit the sketch and I go under features and use the extrude command, I can convert it into what? I can convert it into a cylinder, right? Yeah? Now, if I go and turn that option on, this is good when an instructor wants to make sure the students are doing their job perfectly right. Then I might come here and then go to options, then under sketch and say, hey, only use fully defined sketches. Unless you make it fully defined, you cannot use it for 3D purposes. So if I check that on, right? Now you see here, this is not fully defined. I exit, look. Says, hey, where are you going? Make it fully defined first, then exit and do whatever you want. I'm not letting you out of here. Okay? So you see, it's going to be picky. It's the pickiness level of sketching. So now I said, okay, let me provide a diameter. And now I exit. Now you're not going to pick on me. I can select this and then I can extrude it. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. If you want to force yourself to make nice sketches that are fully defined, so that if somebody touches them, they are not ruining your part, it might be a good practice for yourself to turn that on and force yourself to only use perfectly defined sketches. But SolidWorks is not that hard in the beginning. The other thing I always ask is make sure the center points of arcs and curves are shown. What's that good for? So here, let's say I make a circle here, right? And you see the center is shown. So if I want to draw something from the center of this, I can do that, right? Or if I want to draw another thing at the center, make it concentric with this or anything for that matter, I can do that, right? Because the center of that circle is shown, right? Or the center of this ellipse is shown. They are arcs, okay? You see, they move together because I made them concentric. Now, if you turn that off, then you cannot find the center of the circle. Okay, so just showing you very fast here, I turn that off. And now I draw another circle. Here, you see? It's kind of hidden here, but I'm not seeing it until I move my mouse and hopefully I hit it. And then, like, let's say I want to draw another circle, right? Let me move this a little bit away from here. So, you see, I want to exactly click at the center of this and draw the new object concentric with it. I have to be exactly lucky to exactly hit it here at that cross, and then I can make sure now they are concentric. Or if not, then another way is, I'll show you later, let's say I make something like this and they are not concentric, then I'll force them. So I hold down Control, I select both, and then I say make them concentric, okay? But again, I cannot see the center of the arc. So it's not a good idea to turn that off ever. The other thing very important, which CATIA does not give you, is scale it based on the first dimension. So sometimes you make something and what you make is quite bigger than your actual dimensions, right? So you make a rectangle like this, and let's say this height here, instead of 3, it's just like 1. So if I click here and say 1, you see, it did not distort the shape of the rectangle for me. It kept it as a rectangle and scale it down. Okay, while in CATIA probably you experienced, if any of you work with it, that once your sketch that you first draw and then want to provide dimension is way bigger, way smaller than actual size, and you provide a dimension to the first one, then it distorts the shape of the rest of the sketch, okay? So having that option on is actually a very good thing. It reduces a lot of fixing later. And then finally, prompt to have a driven state. That is also very important. We'll talk about it in the sketch, but let me just show you what it means. So there are two types of dimensions in SolidWorks, driving and driven. So if you provide a dimension for the first time, right, so this is 5, and it determines the width of the rectangle. Now, if I go here and click and say, hey, by the way, this is also 5. Well, SolidWorks is not going to like it. You see, the color goes yellow, and yellow means you are over basically constraining your sketch, right? You're providing more dimension than needed. I know the top one is 5. Of course, the bottom one is 5 too. But if you leave it driving, means it can have effect. If you change it, the sketch should change. If you leave it driving, like the top one, then you have 2 driving dimensions, and one of them is enough, so your sketch will go what? Will go yellow. And say, hey, it's over constrained, I don't like that, right? So you just what? You have to delete one of them. But it also gives you an option to make it driven. If you make it driven, it is not meant to change anything about the sketch. It's just going to be a passive dimension. So it changes based on when you change this one, but you cannot change that one directly. So you say, I want it driven. Look, the color of that goes gray. Gray means driven. So now if you want, you can change this individually, type any number that you want, and that one changes according to this, but you're not supposed to change this one, and it does not allow you. It's just a passive and a driven dimension, okay? So it's just there for information. And in here, really, it does not make sense to have any driven dimension, but I'll show you sometimes adding a dimension for reference, although you have it from some previous features, make some visualizations and drawings easier, okay? So we do not have to over define any sketch. It's forbidden in SolidWorks or any other CAD software. But if you leave it driven, it's not really going to hurt. It's just redundant, but it's not going to hurt because you cannot change it. And it allows you to make it driven. If you turn that option off, it doesn't let you make it driven. It directly make it driving, and so now you have two driving dimensions, and it goes yellow, which means your sketch is over-defined. Okay, so it's good to turn that on so that you have a way to get away with redundancy if you want to. About creating error messages, that's good that if it tries to rebuild and update something, it shows you a message. If there are update errors, warn you before saving the document. So before you save a document with errors, it say, hey, do you want to fix it before you save it? Right? And so many other things. So these are the default of SolidWorks. You can turn these guys on too, but at least do not turn these ones off. One of the things that I mentioned is very important is units. Okay. So sometimes you want your dimensions to be in inches. So here, these dimensions are in what? You can see here when I click here, this dimension is an inch. Why? Because my system is inches. How do I know? Well, if I go here, the system on this bottom right side, it's IPS, inch, pound, second. I can change it to mmgs and look what happens when I do that. So first it exited the sketch, so I have to go back and I'll show you later, but now look, 4 inches is now converted to 101.6 millimeters, right? So this is just a very fast shortcut. You can access the same place that I go to Tools, Options, and then under Document Properties, okay, I go to Units, yes? I can access the same thing here through down here too, Edit Document Units. It goes directly there. And I can have any of the standard systems, or I can make it custom, right? So the major quantities in physics, math, length, angle, and other things, I can choose them to be anything that I want. Okay, so I can select my own system of units, and then also here you can choose the decimal rounding. Do you want to round half away from 0? Do you want to round half towards 0? Do you want to round half to even? Do you want to truncate without rounding? Okay, so this is important. This is important. Typically it goes with the basic rounding, right? So if it's more than 0.5, it goes to next number, less than 0.5 goes to previous integer number. So if you want to show this, for example, with 2 decimals, just going to go 87, this one is going to go 102. Now, that I mentioned, another thing that is good is changing the number of decimals. Sometimes you need more than 2 decimals to show something, right? So maybe here I need 3 decimals, okay? My accuracy of dimensions needs 3 decimals, not 2. How can I change the number of digits, right? So if I go to Tools and Options, and then under Document Properties, go to Dimensions. Then here, not only I can change the font of my dimensions, I can change the font size of my dimensions, right? So right now it's on 13. Let's make it 20, make them bigger. And also, instead of 2 decimals for primary precision, I make it what? 3 decimals, right? So look now. There we go, right? I have 3 decimals and the dimension text is way bigger than what it used to be. So I can change my dimension text, dimension font, dimension precision, everything in Tools Options too. So I guess I mentioned that. I showed you how to display the grid, although you can do it under Dim Expert too. We'll talk about annotations later. The drafting standard you can also choose. Although when you go to drafting and you want to create the standard views, it asks you whether you want it in ISO, ANSI, or what. But you can change it over there too, right? So if you go to Tools Options, okay, and go here under drafting standard, you see it's ISO modified. But you can change it to anything that you want for Germany, for Japan, for US, for ISO, and so on. So you can do that. Although, again, as I said, when you go to create a drafting, typically once you enter here, it asks you, what is it that you want, okay? And you can change. So here, since I set it on ISO, it wanted on ISO, okay, but you can change that as well here. And let's see, if I go under document properties, I can change it over here too, right? Because it brings me back to options. So you can change that as well. So for this course, you might just go with ANSI standard, okay? But we'll do drafting later and we'll talk about that later, so don't worry too much about it. We'll get to many of these back again in the future. About detailing a document, whether if you go under detailing, whether you want to show cosmetic threads, whether you want to show surface finish, weld, again, most of these are for drafting, so let's skip those for the moment. The two important things I want to talk about, one of them is SolidWorks add-ins, and the other one is customizing toolbars. These can be quite useful. So if I go here, let me close this. Let's say I don't want it, and just open up one of those previous parts. So when you go to SolidWorks, under Tools and go down, there is one says add-ins. And these are add-ins that you can add to SolidWorks. And if you install an add-in, these are the extra pieces of software that you can install, and they will be added to SolidWorks to do some more advanced things. Like what? Like, for example, scan to 3D. If you bring this guy in, this is for reading the mesh files from a scanner, a 3D scanner, and then converting them into solid objects. Although it's not super powerful, but this is one of the recent ones in SolidWorks. Or you want to design digital circuits, or want to design basically PCBs, right, ICs or so on. Or you want to basically do motion analysis, right? So you want to do simulations, you want to do photo view, you want to add feature works. There are so many other things that exist. For example, one is for ANSYS, so it directly takes your file from SolidWorks to ANSYS. The other one is for MATLAB. So I guess I mentioned it, but if not, whatever CAD file that you make in SolidWorks, you can export to be used in MATLAB. Okay, your SolidWorks files, there is an add-in, it's called Sim Escape Linker. And Sim Escape Linker, you download it from MathWorks. When you install it, it adds here, and then it allows you an option over there to save your files in a format that MATLAB can read in Simulink under SimEscape, and you can basically do advanced simulations. I guess I showed you the backhoe, but if not, you can just take a look at that, do a search. Actually, you see ANSYS right here. So these are some of nice options, and in this course, I just work with PhotoView 360. I don't know if time allows or not, and what is the level of the prereq that you have passed, all of you. Whether I can go and show you motion analysis in SolidWorks and simulation, or scan to 3D, depends on if you pass the required prereqs or not. Okay, so we'll go through some of them maybe, probably, but PhotoView for sure. And this is for rendering and basically showing your part in a very nice way. The other thing I mentioned under tools is customize, and this is for customizing your toolbars. Okay, so there are so many different toolbars here, okay, which you can see up there, here. There are a lot of them. All of these are toolbars, and you can add commands to them, you can remove commands from them and customize them. Okay, so here, for example, let's say see if I can find, so sketch tool. Okay, so I can choose sketch, right? And when I check it, then on this right side, these are the sketch tools, the sketch toolbar. These are the tools in the sketch toolbar, right? Now if I go under commands, if I can find any command for drawing sketches that you do not have directly here, I can just drag and drop them, right? So I'm not sure if there is anything, but I can go and check here under sketch. Maybe there is something that exists, or maybe, yeah, this one, sketch picture, adding a picture. You can find it under option under tools, but if you want to add a background picture for so many purposes, including reverse engineering, which is your first project, that tool is not directly here. You have to go and find it from tools and then sketch tools, sketch entities, sketch tools. But if you want, you can just grab this guy and bring it here and just drop it anywhere, like there. Okay, and there we go. So now if you want to draw any sketch, or you have any sketch, you can basically bring a picture, right, and add it. So for example here, if I go and say T-beam, correct, let's say you want to reverse a T-beam, and I'll get some picture of a T-beam, something like that, okay, and I save this image on my downloads here, right? Let's hopefully it reads ping image. Let's see. I click on this and then I can browse for my picture, right? And then I can put it in the background. If I want, I can rotate it, correct? So let me rotate it 180. And then I can drag it around. Right? You see what I'm doing? Anywhere, and then I OK that. And now that I got my picture, I can basically go to sketch and try to draw on the top of this and reverse this part, right? This is something that will be super useful for some of your project number 1, reverse engineering project. Okay, so here. Now I can get rid of this if I don't want it. So I could easily what? Reverse that T-beam instead of my original one. Yes? And here. Of course it gives me error because I did mirror and so many other things, but look, this is that guy. Correct? So whatever tool that is not in your toolbars, you can go to customize and add them for yourself, right? Okay, so, or you can delete. You just need to drag the command out of that toolbar, right? So I go here, tools, customize, and look at this. This was the command I added, right? I drag it and just threw it out. There we go. That's simple. I removed the command from the toolbar. So I guess I mentioned most of this stuff. As I said, many of them are related to drafting, and when we get to drafting, I'll talk about them, but just wanted you to know about it. I guess that's enough for this lecture.